At my son's wedding, his bride handed me a note. "Your son is not who he pretends to be. Save yourself urgently," she said. When I opened the letter, I couldn't believe my eyes and asked, "Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled." I had spent 32 years building a life I was proud of. My husband Robert and I raised our son Michael in a modest 2-story house in Portland, Oregon, watching him grow from a curious child into a successful marketing consultant. When Robert passed away 5 years ago, Michael became my anchor. He called every Sunday, visited twice a month, brought groceries when I needed them. I thought I knew everything about my boy. The first time I met Vanessa was 6 months before the wedding. Michael brought her to Sunday dinner, and she seemed perfect, polite, well-educated, worked as a nurse at Providence Hospital. She complimented my pot roast, asked thoughtful questions about the family photos on the mantel, laughed at Michael's childhood stories. But I noticed something odd. When I mentioned Michael's college years at University of Oregon, Vanessa's smile faltered for just a second. She glanced at Michael with an expression I couldn't quite read. Confusion? Fear? "You must be so proud he graduated summa cum laude," she said softly. "Of course," I replied, though Michael had actually graduated with honors, not summa cum laude. Why would she get that wrong? And why didn't Michael correct her? Over the following months, small inconsistencies accumulated like dust in corners I couldn't reach. Vanessa would mention places Michael had supposedly taken her, restaurants we'd gone to as a family, hiking trails Robert had loved. But her descriptions were always slightly off. She said the Thai restaurant on Hawthorne had red booths when they were actually black. She claimed Michael proposed at Multnomah Falls, but when I asked him privately, he said it was at Powell's bookstore. "Mom, you're remembering wrong," Michael said when I questioned him. His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Was I losing my memory? I was 68, not ancient, and my mind was still sharp. I paid my bills on time, remembered appointments, could recite phone numbers I'd learned decades ago. So why did everything about Vanessa and Michael's relationship feel like watching a movie with the audio slightly out of sync? The wedding day arrived on a brilliant Saturday in June. St. Mary's Cathedral was decorated with white roses and ivory ribbons. I wore my best navy dress, the one I'd saved for special occasions, and sat in the front pew as mother of the groom. Michael looked handsome in his charcoal suit, standing at the altar with his groomsmen, though I noticed only 2 of them were friends I recognized from high school. Where were his college roommates? His co-workers? Vanessa walked down the aisle in a stunning lace gown, her father beaming beside her. She was beautiful, radiant even, but when her eyes met mine, I saw something that made my stomach clench. Desperation. During the ceremony, I tried to focus on the joy of the moment. My only son was getting married. I should be crying happy tears, not fighting a growing sense of dread. The priest spoke about love and commitment while I studied Michael's face. He seemed tense, his jaw tight, eyes fixed straight ahead. At the reception, I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations and making small talk with Vanessa's relatives. The ballroom at the Benson Hotel was elegant, filled with the chatter of 200 guests and the soft melody of a string quartet. I was heading to the ladies' room when Vanessa appeared beside me, her face pale beneath her makeup. "Mrs. Patterson," she whispered, pressing something into my palm. "Please, you have to read this. Not here. Go somewhere private." "Vanessa, what?" "Please," she hissed, her eyes darting toward where Michael stood, talking to his best man. Your son is not who you think he is. You need to save yourself. I'm so sorry. Just read it. She disappeared into the crowd before I could respond. My hand trembled as I clutched the folded paper. The ladies' room was empty, thank God. I locked myself in the largest stall and unfolded the note with shaking fingers. What I read made my blood run cold. Your son Michael died in a car accident 4 years ago in Seattle. The man you call your son is named David Thornton. He's a con artist. He's been studying Michael's life, and he targeted me because I'm a nurse. He needs medical records and prescription access. He's planning to forge your will and take everything. I found proof in his laptop. Police won't believe me without evidence. He threatened my family if I don't go through with this. Please help us both. The real Michael's death certificate is in King County Records, September 2021. Check it. V. My vision blurred. This couldn't be real. This was insane. But even as I tried to reject it, pieces clicked into place like a puzzle I'd been trying to ignore. The small inconsistencies, the changed memories, the missing friends. What had I done? Who was the man I'd just watched get married? I sat in that bathroom stall for what felt like an eternity, the note trembling in my hands. My mind raced through memories, searching for proof that this was a horrible mistake, a cruel joke, anything but the truth. But the more I thought, the more the foundation of my reality crumbled. 4 years ago. September 2021. I tried to remember exactly what had happened. Michael, or whoever he was, had called me saying he was moving back to Portland from Seattle after a difficult breakup. He'd seemed different when I picked him up at the airport, but I'd attributed it to heartbreak and stress. He'd lost weight, changed his haircut, even his voice sounded slightly off. Laryngitis, he'd said when I mentioned it. Had it for weeks. How could I have been so blind? I pressed my fist against my mouth to stifle a sob. Outside the stall, I heard women laughing, fixing their makeup, discussing how beautiful the ceremony had been. They had no idea that the mother of the groom was falling apart, her entire world shattering like dropped glass. Think, Margaret. Think clearly. If this man wasn't Michael, he'd had 4 years to study my son's life, to perfect the impersonation. He knew family stories, childhood memories, inside jokes. But now that I was looking for cracks, they were everywhere. He couldn't remember which arm Michael broke in 3rd grade, said left when it was right. He didn't recognize the melody of the lullaby I used to sing. Last Christmas, he'd given me a cashmere scarf when Michael knew I was allergic to wool and its substitutes. Small things. Things I'd explained away as stress, aging, changing tastes. But a death certificate. That was concrete. That was verifiable. I forced myself to breathe slowly. I couldn't fall apart here. If what Vanessa wrote was true, and God help me, I was beginning to believe it was, then I was in danger. Real, immediate danger. This man had access to my house, my finances, my trust. He'd been positioning himself to inherit everything I had. Robert's life insurance, the house, my retirement savings, 2 decades of careful financial planning, and Vanessa. Poor Vanessa. She'd figured it out, and now she was trapped, threatened into silence, married to a monster who was using her medical access for some scheme I couldn't yet fathom. I steadied myself against the stall wall and stood up. My legs felt weak, but I couldn't show it. I had to go back to that reception and pretend everything was fine. Smile. Hug my son. Dance the mother-son dance I'd been looking forward to for years. The thought made me nauseous. But what choice did I have? If I confronted him now, without proof, he could disappear. Or worse, the note mentioned threats against Vanessa's family. What would he do to me? I flushed the toilet for appearance's sake, tucked the note deep into my purse, and emerged from the stall. In the mirror, a pale, frightened woman stared back at me. I ran cold water over my wrists, touched up my lipstick with shaking hands, and forced my face into something resembling composure. The reception was in full swing when I returned. Michael was cutting the cake with Vanessa, both of them smiling for the photographer. How many of those smiles were genuine? His, probably all of them, the smile of a predator who'd successfully cornered his prey. Hers, none of them. Margaret, my sister Helen grabbed my arm. Where have you been? They're about to do the first dance. Just needed a moment, I managed. It's overwhelming, you know, your baby getting married. Helen patted my hand sympathetically, oblivious. Everyone was oblivious. Or was I the only one who'd been fooled? Did Vanessa's family know? Did his groomsmen? I watched Michael lead Vanessa onto the dance floor, and a plan began forming in my mind. I couldn't go to the police without proof. They'd think I was a delusional old woman. I couldn't confront him without putting myself and Vanessa at risk. But I could investigate. Quietly. Carefully. Monday morning, I would drive to the public library and use their computer. I'd search King County death records for September 2021. I'd look for Michael Patterson, and I'd pray with everything I had that Vanessa was wrong, that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. But in my heart, I already knew what I would find. The mother-son dance was called. I walked onto that floor, took the hand of the stranger wearing my son's face, and let him spin me around while everyone applauded. His eyes were cold up close, calculating. Had they always been? How had I missed it? You look upset, Mom, he said softly, his grip on my hand tightening slightly. Everything okay? I smiled. The performance of my life. Just emotional. You know how mothers are at weddings. He relaxed, satisfied. I love you, Mom. The words that once brought me comfort now felt like ice water in my veins. I love you too, I lied, and began counting down the hours until I could start searching for the truth. Monday morning arrived with agonizing slowness. I'd barely slept since the wedding, lying awake in my bed, listening to every creak of the old house, jumping at shadows. Michael had called Sunday evening to thank me again for the beautiful ceremony, his voice warm and affectionate. I'd nearly vomited after hanging up. At 9 a.m., I drove to the Multnomah County Library downtown. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was chaos. What if I found nothing? What if Vanessa was mentally unstable, paranoid? But what if she was right? The library's computer section was quiet. I chose a terminal in the corner, away from prying eyes, and opened the Washington State Department of Health website. King County Death Records. September 2021. I typed, Michael James Patterson. The search took 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. And there it was. Death certificate. Michael James Patterson. DOB. April 15, 1990. DOD. September 23, 2021. Cause of death. Motor vehicle accident. Location. Interstate 5, Seattle, Washington. My son was dead. My real son had been dead for 4 years, and I'd been having Sunday dinners with his murderer, or at least the man who'd stolen his identity. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk, forcing myself to breathe. Not here. I couldn't break down here. I clicked print, my fingers numb. The printer hummed, and a librarian glanced over. I smiled weakly. Just a grandmother doing research. Nothing to see here. The death certificate listed next of kin. Margaret Patterson, mother. They'd never contacted me. Why? I searched my memory of that September. Had I received any calls from Seattle? Any official notices? No, because by then the imposter had already intercepted everything. He'd been living as Michael in Seattle, and when the real Michael died, he'd simply continued. Moved back to Portland to comfort his grieving mother, who didn't even know she should be grieving. The sophistication of it was terrifying. I printed the death certificate and folded it carefully into my purse next to Vanessa's note. Evidence. Concrete. Undeniable evidence. But evidence of what, exactly? Identity theft? Fraud? How many laws had this man broken? I needed more. I pulled up the Seattle Times archives and searched for the accident. There, a small article. Fatal single-vehicle collision on I-5. Michael James Patterson, 31, lost control of his vehicle during heavy rain, crashed into a barrier. Pronounced dead at the scene. No other vehicles involved. No other vehicles. But had someone been following him? Had this been an accident at all, or something more sinister? I spent 3 hours in that library, printing articles, death records, anything I could find. I discovered that the real Michael had been working for a tech startup in Seattle, living in an apartment in Capitol Hill. I found his LinkedIn profile, inactive since September 2021. The face in the photo was my son, my real son, the man I'd raised with Robert's eyes and my stubborn chin. Tears finally came, silent and hot. I let them fall while staring at that photo. My baby, my beautiful boy, gone for 4 years while I'd been fooled by an imposter. But grief would have to wait. I had work to do. I was gathering my papers when my phone rang. Michael! My blood froze. I almost didn't answer, but that would be suspicious. I cleared my throat and picked up. Hi, honey. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. You seemed a little off at the wedding. Wanted to make sure you're feeling okay? His voice was concerned, caring. The perfect son. But I could hear something underneath now. A calculation, a watchfulness. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice light. Just tired. It was a big weekend. Where are you? You sound different. Echoey. He was tracking me. How? My location services? I glanced around the library, paranoid. Just out running errands, I said. Grocery store. A pause. Too long. Okay, well, Vanessa and I are leaving for our honeymoon tomorrow. Bermuda for 2 weeks. I'll call when we're back. 2 weeks. He was leaving for 2 weeks. That gave me time. Have a wonderful time, I said. You both deserve it. Thanks, Mom. Love you. I hung up without responding and immediately turned off my phone's location services. How much did he know? Had he somehow tracked me to the library? Did he know I was searching? That evening, I sat at my kitchen table and organized everything I'd found. Death certificate, news articles, photos of the real Michael. I pulled out old family albums and compared them to recent pictures of the imposter. Same height, similar build, but the eyes were different. The real Michael had a small scar above his left eyebrow from a bicycle accident when he was 7. The imposter had no scar. How had I not noticed? I knew the answer. I'd been a lonely widow who'd wanted to believe her son still needed her. I'd seen what I wanted to see. But now, I saw the truth. And the truth was that a dangerous con artist had embedded himself in my life, married a woman he was using and threatening, and was planning to steal everything I had. I picked up my phone and stared at it. Police? Not yet. I needed a lawyer first. Someone who could advise me on how to proceed without putting myself or Vanessa at risk. Tomorrow, I would find one. Tonight, I would deadbolt every door and sleep with Robert's old baseball bat beside my bed. The war had begun. Tuesday morning, I met with Patricia Hawkins, an attorney specializing in estate planning and fraud cases. Her office in downtown Portland was sleek and professional. the kind of place that radiated competence. I'd found her through a friend's recommendation, someone who knew nothing about my situation. I couldn't risk word getting back to Michael. Patricia listened to my story without interruption, her expression growing graver with each detail. When I finished and laid out the death certificate and documentation, she sat back in her leather chair and let out a long breath. "Mrs. Patterson, this is one of the most elaborate cases of identity fraud I've encountered," she said. "But we have a problem. We have proof that Michael Patterson is dead. We don't have proof that the man claiming to be him is David Thornton or anyone else specific. Without knowing his real identity, prosecution becomes complicated." "What do I do?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "First, we secure your assets immediately. We'll revoke any power of attorney, change beneficiaries, lock down your accounts. Second, we gather more evidence. We need to identify who this man really is. Third, we involve law enforcement, but strategically. If we move too fast, he disappears. If we move too slow, you're at risk." We spent 2 hours creating a plan. Patricia would file paperwork to freeze my estate and remove Michael from any legal documents. I would hire a private investigator to uncover the imposter's real identity. We'd document everything, build an ironclad case, then involve the FBI. This crossed state lines, making it federal fraud. "What about Vanessa?" I asked. Patricia's expression softened. "That's trickier. She's legally married to him. If she's being coerced, she needs to come forward herself, or we need evidence of threats. Can you contact her safely?" "I don't know. He threatened her family." "Then we proceed carefully. Once we have his identity and evidence, we can offer her protection." I left Patricia's office feeling, for the first time since the wedding, like I had some control. I'd stopped at the bank immediately after, closing the joint account I'd foolishly opened with Michael 2 years ago for emergencies. I moved everything to a new account at a different bank, changed my will, my beneficiaries, my passwords. I was erasing him from my life, piece by piece. That evening, my phone exploded with calls. Michael. Over and over, I let them go to voicemail. Finally, a text. "Mom, what's going on? The bank called. You closed our account? Are you upset about something? Please call me." I didn't respond. An hour later, he showed up at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, still in his work clothes, his expression concerned. Concerned or furious? I couldn't tell anymore. "Mom, please, let me in. I'm worried about you." My hand hovered over the deadbolt. Patricia had warned me this would happen. "Don't engage until we have more evidence. Don't confront him alone. He could be dangerous." "Mom!" His voice rose. "I know you're in there. What's happening? Why are you shutting me out?" I stepped back from the door, my heart pounding. He knocked harder. "Is this about Vanessa? Did she say something to you?" "Mom, she's been under a lot of stress. Planning the wedding, starting married life. Sometimes she says things that aren't true. Please, let's talk about this." So he knew. He knew Vanessa had given me something, even if he didn't know what. How much had he gotten out of her? I grabbed my phone and texted him. "I need some space. The wedding was overwhelming. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk." The knocking stopped. Through the peephole, I watched him read the message. His face transformed. Just for a second, the mask slipped, and I saw cold rage. Then it was gone, replaced by hurt confusion. "Okay, Mom," he called through the door. "I understand. Take your time. But please know I love you, and I'm here whenever you need me." He walked back to his car, Michael's old Honda that he'd kept, probably to maintain the illusion. I watched him sit there for 10 minutes, staring at my house. Then his phone rang. He answered, and even from this distance, I could see his body language change. Sharp, aggressive. Who was he talking to? An accomplice? Vanessa? He drove away, and I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He knows you're suspicious. Be careful. Don't let him in. He's furious. V. Vanessa had found a way to warn me. I double-checked every lock, closed every curtain. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard footsteps on my porch, but when I looked, no one was there. Was I being paranoid, or was he watching? The next day, I met with the private investigator Patricia recommended, a former police detective named Marcus Chen. I gave him everything I had, including a recent photo of the imposter. "I'll find out who he really is," Marcus promised. "Give me a week." But I didn't have a week of peace. That afternoon, my sister Helen called. "Margaret, I just got the strangest visit from Michael. He said you're having some kind of breakdown, that you've been acting erratic, closing accounts, refusing to see him. He's very worried. Are you okay? Should I come over?" He was isolating me, planting seeds that I was mentally unstable. "Helen, I'm fine. I just needed some space after the wedding. You know how emotional these things can be. But closing your bank account? That seems... I'm reorganizing my finances. It's nothing for him to worry about." I could hear the doubt in her voice. He'd gotten to her. How many others had he called? My friends? My neighbors? The war was escalating, and I realized with cold clarity, I'd underestimated him. He wasn't just going to let me walk away with my assets intact. He was going to fight, and he was very, very good at this game. I took Patricia's advice and went to stay with Helen for a few days, claiming I wanted company. Really, I was afraid to be alone in my house, afraid of what he might do if he got desperate enough. In Helen's guest room, I allowed myself to finally grieve for my real son, dead 4 years in a rainy Seattle crash, for the time I'd lost with an imposter, for the trust that had been shattered. But grief would have to wait. Right now, I needed to survive. On the 3rd day at Helen's house, she came into the guest room with a troubled expression. "Margaret, I think you should read this." She handed me her phone. It was a Facebook post from Michael, written with such perfect wounded sadness that I might have believed it myself once. "Sometimes the people we love most pull away when they need us most. My mom has been struggling since Dad's death, and now she's shutting me out right after my wedding. If you're her friend, please check on her. I'm worried she's not thinking clearly. Depression can make us do things that hurt the people trying to help. I just want my mom back. I love you, Mom, even if you won't talk to me right now." The comments were already flooding in. Friends of mine, people from church, neighbors, all expressing concern, all suggesting I was having some kind of mental health crisis. "Margaret?" Helen's voice was gentle. "Is there something you're not telling me? Because this doesn't sound like you, and Michael seems genuinely worried." This was the moment. I could tell Helen everything, show her the death certificate, pull her into this nightmare, or I could protect her from it until I had everything I needed. I chose protection. "Helen, I promise you, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I can't explain everything right now, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She studied my face for a long moment. "You're scaring me." "I know, but I'm not crazy and I'm not depressed. I'm being very, very careful about something important. Please, just give me a little more time." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Okay, but if you need help, you'll be the first person I call." After she left, I stared at that Facebook post. It was masterful manipulation, painting himself as the concerned son, me as the unstable elderly woman. How many people would believe him? How many would start questioning my competence? My phone rang. Patricia Hawkins. "Mrs. Patterson, we have a problem." I just received a call from an attorney representing your son. They're claiming you're showing signs of dementia and requesting a competency evaluation. They want to establish guardianship. My blood went cold. He's trying to take control of my estate. Exactly. It's a smart move on his part. If he can prove you're incompetent, he can override all the changes you've made. We need to act fast. I'm scheduling an independent psychiatric evaluation for you with Dr. Sarah Reeves, a respected neuropsychologist. We'll document that you're of sound mind. When? Tomorrow, if possible. Can you make it? I'll be there. That evening, as I sat in Helen's living room pretending to watch television, my phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number Vanessa had used before. He's planning something. Heard him on phone talking about moving up the timeline. Be careful. Can't talk more. He watches everything I do. V. Moving up. What timeline? What was he planning? I forwarded the message to Patricia and Marcus Chen. We were in a race now, and I wasn't sure I was winning. The next day, Dr. Reeves put me through 4 hours of cognitive testing, psychiatric evaluation, and interviews. I answered every question honestly, demonstrated my mental clarity, explained my situation. She was professional, thorough, and by the end, sympathetic. Mrs. Patterson, you're one of the sharpest people your age I've evaluated. There's absolutely no sign of cognitive decline, dementia, or any condition that would impair your judgment. I'll have my report to your attorney by end of day. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. I have to ask, are you safe? This situation sounds dangerous. I'm being careful. Please continue to be. I left her office feeling fortified. He could claim I was incompetent all he wanted. I had proof otherwise. But that evening brought an unexpected ally. Vanessa's younger sister, Monica, called me from a blocked number. Mrs. Patterson, you don't know me, but Vanessa told me what's happening. She's terrified, but I'm not marrying him, and he can't threaten my family without me fighting back. What can I do to help? I almost cried with relief. How much do you know? Everything. Vanessa found files on his laptop, ID documents for at least 3 different identities, records of other cons he's pulled, bank account information. She's been secretly photographing everything she can. Is she safe? For now. He thinks she's completely under his control. But Mrs. Patterson, you need to know, he's done this before. There were 2 other elderly women, one in California, one in Arizona. He drained their accounts and disappeared before they realized what happened. You're different because Vanessa figured it out. What happened to those women? Monica's silence said everything. We need those photographs, I said, my voice hard. Can Vanessa get them to me safely? She's working on it. He's leaving for a business trip this weekend. She'll have a few hours. Tell her to be careful. Tell her... I swallowed hard. Tell her I'm going to get us both out of this. She knows. That's why she risked everything to warn you. After we hung up, I called Patricia and Marcus with the update. We had 4 days until the weekend. 4 days to prepare. I returned to my own house that Friday, armed with new locks, a security system Patricia had arranged, and Marcus Chen parked discreetly down the street in an unmarked car. If Michael showed up, we'd have witnesses. He didn't come. But Saturday morning, I received a flower delivery. Beautiful white roses with a card. Mom, I miss you. Please let me make this right. Your loving son, Michael. I threw them in the trash and called Patricia. He's trying the soft approach now. That means he's getting desperate. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. I hoped she was right, because I was tired of being afraid in my own home, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of this monster wearing my son's name. The real fight was coming, and I was ready. Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I checked the security camera Patricia had installed and saw him, Michael, standing on my porch with Vanessa beside him. She looked pale, exhausted, her smile forced. He held a casserole dish, the picture of a concerned son bringing his mother a home-cooked meal. I almost didn't answer. Marcus Chen had gone home for a few hours. I'd told him I'd be fine for the afternoon. Now I regretted that decision. The doorbell rang again. "Mom, please, I know you're home. Vanessa made your favorite lasagna. Can we just talk?" I looked at Vanessa through the camera. She met the lens directly, and I saw the plea in her eyes. She needed me to let them in. Why? I opened the door but kept the security chain on. "I'm not ready for visitors." Michael's smile was warm, but his eyes were cold. "Mom, this is getting ridiculous. Whatever I did to upset you, I'm sorry. Can't we work through it like family? I told you I needed space. It's been over a week. How much space do you need?" His voice had an edge now. "People are worried about you. Helen says you're acting paranoid. Mrs. Chen from church called me asking if you're okay. This isn't like you." Mrs. Chen. He was building a network of concern, making sure everyone thought I was losing my mind. Vanessa spoke softly. "Mrs. Patterson, please, I'd really like to talk to you." Woman to woman. Her eyes darted to her husband, then back to me. "Please." I understood. She had something to give me. Something she couldn't pass any other way. I unhooked the chain. 15 minutes. They entered, and immediately the house felt smaller, more threatening. Michael set the lasagna on my kitchen counter with practiced familiarity, moving through my space as if he belonged there. Because for 4 years, he'd made me believe he did. "Coffee?" he asked, reaching for my cupboard. "No, thank you. You said you wanted to talk, so talk." He turned, and for a moment, the mask slipped. I saw calculation, assessment. Then the concerned son was back. "Mom, I'm worried about you. Closing bank accounts, changing your will, refusing to see me. These are signs of something serious. Have you considered that maybe you need help? Professional help? I've been evaluated by a neuropsychologist. I'm perfectly competent." His eyebrows rose. "You got evaluated? Why would you do that unless you were worried about yourself?" "I did it to protect myself from people who might question my judgment." "People like me?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, I'm your son. I only want what's best for you." "Are you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "My son?" The air went electric. Vanessa gasped softly. Michael went very still. "What kind of question is that?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. "A simple one. Are you Michael James Patterson?" He stared at me for a long moment. Then his expression shifted into hurt confusion so perfectly that I almost believed it. Almost. "Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is cruel. Of course I'm your son. I'm the same person you raised, the same person who held your hand at Dad's funeral, who calls you every Sunday. What's happened to you?" "Nothing's happened to me. I'm seeing clearly for the first time in 4 years." He took a step toward me, and I saw Vanessa tense. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking you a question." "Fine. Yes, I am Michael Patterson, your son, the only child you have, and I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated like a criminal in your house." "This is my house," I interrupted, "and you're right. You won't be interrogated here. I'd like you to leave now." His jaw clenched. "We're not done talking." "Yes, we are." Vanessa stood up quickly. "Michael, maybe we should go. Let your mom have some time." "Sit down," he snapped, and she flinched. There it was. The real him. Controlling. Dangerous. I pulled out my phone. Leave now or I'm calling the police. He laughed, actually laughed. And tell them what? That your son came to visit you? That you're having paranoid delusions about his identity? Mom, think about how that sounds. Think about how you sound. I sound like someone who knows the truth. What truth? His voice rose. That I'm some kind of imposter? That's insane. Is it? Tell me about your scar, the one above your left eyebrow from when you crashed your bike at age 7. He touched his eyebrow automatically, the right one, not the left. No scar on either. His face went blank for just a second. I don't have a scar. Michael did. Maybe you're misremembering. You're 68 years old, Mom. Memory gets fuzzy. My memory is perfect. King County death records are also perfect. September 23rd, 2021, motor vehicle accident on I-5, Michael James Patterson, age 31. Vanessa's eyes went wide. She hadn't known I'd found that. The man before me, David, or whoever he really was, went completely still. Then, slowly, his expression changed. The concerned sun melted away, replaced by something cold and predatory. Well, he said softly, I underestimated you. Vanessa stood up, trembling. Michael! Shut up, Vanessa. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine. You've been busy, Margaret. How long have you known? Long enough. Since the wedding, Vanessa's little note. He turned to his wife and she shrank back. We'll discuss that later. Don't you threaten her, I said, my phone still in my hand. He smiled. A terrible smile. Or what? You'll call the police? With what evidence? A death certificate. That proves Michael Patterson died. It doesn't prove I'm not him. Identity theft requires you to know who I really am. Do you know that, Margaret? I will soon. No, you won't. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to restore my access to your accounts. You're going to put me back in your will, and you're going to stop this little investigation. And if I don't? Then everyone will know about your declining mental health, your paranoid delusions, your accusations against your loving son. I have a dozen people ready to testify that you've been acting erratically. I have emails you've sent that I've edited to show confusion. I've been building this for weeks, Margaret, since I realized you were getting suspicious. By the time I'm done, you'll be declared incompetent. I'll be your guardian, and everything you own will be mine anyway. The only question is whether you want to make this easy or hard. You killed my son, I whispered. I did no such thing. Michael Patterson died in an unfortunate accident. I simply stepped into the vacancy he left. Get out of my house. This will be my house soon enough. I dialed 911. He moved fast, snatching the phone from my hand before I could hit call. I don't think so. Give that back! Or what? He pocketed my phone. Margaret, you need to understand your position. You're alone. You're elderly. You have no proof of who I am. And you're up against someone who has done this successfully 3 times before. You cannot win. Vanessa was crying quietly. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. Leave, I said firmly. Now. He studied me for a long moment, then shrugged. Fine. But this conversation isn't over. And Margaret, if you keep pushing this, I will destroy you. Not just financially, I'll destroy your reputation, your relationships, everything. I'll make you wish you'd never found that death certificate. He grabbed Vanessa's arm and pulled her toward the door. She stumbled, and something fell from her pocket, a folded piece of paper. She kicked it under my coat rack so subtly I almost missed it. Then they were gone. I locked the door with shaking hands, checked every window, armed the security system. Then I retrieved the paper Vanessa had dropped. It was a photograph, printed from a phone. A laptop screen showing a document, a Colorado driver's license. David Michael Thornton, age 38. And next to it, newspaper clippings about 2 elderly women, one in Phoenix, one in San Diego, who'd been defrauded by a man matching his description. Vanessa had given me his real identity. I called Marcus Chen immediately. I know who he is. The fear I'd felt during the confrontation transformed into something harder, colder. He'd threatened me, shown his true face, made it personal. Big mistake. Marcus Chen worked through the night. By Monday morning, we had everything. David Michael Thornton, age 38, with a criminal history spanning 3 states, multiple aliases, 2 previous convictions for fraud. He'd served 18 months in California. There were warrants in Arizona for identity theft, and most damning, photographs of him with the 2 other elderly women he'd conned. Women who'd lost everything before their families realized what happened. Patricia called an emergency meeting with FBI Special Agent Rodriguez, who specialized in identity fraud. We laid out the entire case: death certificate, evidence of David's real identity, documentation of his threats, Vanessa's testimony that she was willing to provide, and the photographs showing his pattern of targeting vulnerable women. "This is solid," Rodriguez said, studying the file. "We can arrest him today. Wire fraud, identity theft, crossing state lines makes it federal. He's looking at 15 to 20 years, minimum." "What about Vanessa?" I asked. "He threatened her family." "We'll offer her protection. She'll need to testify, but we can keep her safe." "I want to be there," I said, "when you arrest him." Rodriguez hesitated. "Mrs. Patterson, that's not standard procedure. I've earned the right to see this through. He stole 4 years of my life. He wore my dead son's name like a costume. I need to be there." Patricia touched my arm. "Margaret, it could be dangerous." "I don't care. I'm going." Rodriguez sighed. "Fine. But you stay in the car with an agent. You don't approach him." "Understood?" "Understood." That afternoon, we drove to the small house David had rented for himself and Vanessa in Southeast Portland. 3 FBI vehicles, Portland police backup. I sat in the back of Rodriguez's SUV, my heart pounding. "He's home," an agent reported. "Vehicle in the driveway, lights on inside." Rodriguez radioed the team. "Move in." I watched 6 agents approach the house, weapons drawn. The lead agent knocked. "FBI, David Thornton, we have a warrant for your arrest. Open the door." For a moment, nothing. Then the door opened, and there he was, no longer pretending to be my son. Just a cornered criminal realizing his game was over. "What's this about?" he asked calmly, too calmly. "David Michael Thornton, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." He didn't move. "I think there's been a mistake. My name is Michael Patterson." "We know who you are, Thornton. We have fingerprints, records, witnesses. Turn around now." His eyes scanned the scene, and for a moment I thought he might run. Then his gaze landed on Rodriguez's SUV, on me sitting in the back seat. Our eyes met. He smiled. Then he bolted. Agents swarmed after him as he ran through the house toward the back door. I heard shouts, a crash, more shouts. 2 minutes later, they brought him out in handcuffs, his face bleeding from where he'd run into a doorframe trying to escape. "This is a misunderstanding," he yelled. "That woman, my mother, she's not well. She's confused. I can explain everything." Rodriguez walked over to him. "Save it for your lawyer. You're done." An agent brought Vanessa out separately. She looked terrified until she saw me. Then she started crying. I got out of the SUV despite my promise to stay put and went to her. "It's over," I told her. "You're safe now." "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I should have told you sooner. I was so scared." "You were brave. You saved both our lives." David was still yelling as they loaded him into a police car. "Margaret! Mom! Please! Tell them who I am! Tell them I'm your son!" The desperation in his voice was almost convincing. Almost. I walked over to the police car and looked at him through the window. He stopped yelling. "My son died 4 years ago," I said clearly. And you're nothing but a coward who stole his name." His expression twisted into pure hatred. "You'll regret this. I'll get out, and I'll make you pay." "Threatening a witness," Rodriguez noted. "Add that to the charges." They drove him away, and I stood in the driveway, watching the car disappear. Patricia came up beside me. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Tired, sad, angry. I paused. "Victorious. You should be proud. You took down a dangerous criminal." But I wasn't thinking about pride. I was thinking about my real son, about Michael, who'd died alone in Seattle rain, who'd never gotten to be truly celebrated, properly mourned. This imposter had stolen even that from him. "I need to go to Seattle," I said. "I need to visit Michael's grave." Patricia nodded. "We'll arrange it after the trial." The trial took 6 months to prepare. David Thornton fought every charge, claimed mistaken identity, attempted to argue that the death certificate was falsified. His lawyer tried to paint me as a confused elderly woman who'd turned against her own son. But the evidence was overwhelming. Fingerprints, DNA, that didn't match Michael's DNA from his childhood medical records. Testimony from his previous victims' families. Vanessa's photographs and testimony about his threats and manipulation. Bank records showing his pattern of theft. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing was another month later. I attended, sitting in the front row. David was brought in wearing prison orange, his confidence finally broken. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he looked directly at me. "I never meant to hurt you, Margaret," he said quietly. "I just needed to survive." "You used my grief as a weapon," I replied. "You wore my son's name. There's no forgiveness for that." The judge sentenced him to 22 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for 15. As they led him away, he didn't look back. The day after David Thornton's sentencing, I drove to Seattle with Patricia. We'd located Michael's grave in a small cemetery in Queen Anne, overlooking the city he'd loved. For 4 years, it had sat untended, marked only by a simple stone. Michael James Patterson, 1990 to 2021. Beloved son. I brought white roses, Michael's favorite, and knelt beside the headstone. "I'm sorry I took so long to find you," I whispered. "I'm so sorry you were alone all this time." Patricia gave me privacy, and I sat there for an hour, talking to my son. The grief that I'd been holding back for months finally broke through, and I cried until I had no tears left. But alongside the grief was something else. Closure. I arranged for a proper headstone with Michael's photo and established a memorial fund in his name for a Seattle youth program he'd volunteered with. I contacted his old friends and colleagues, and we held a memorial service, 4 years late, but deeply meaningful. His best friend from college gave a eulogy. His former boss shared stories about his creativity and kindness. It was the goodbye he deserved. Back in Portland, I focused on rebuilding. My reputation had taken hits, but most people rallied around me once they understood the full story. Helen apologized for doubting me. My church community held a support gathering. Mrs. Chen brought homemade soup and an apology. But the most important relationship to rebuild was with Vanessa. She'd been through hell during the trial, forced to relive David's threats. The marriage was annulled, and she'd moved back with her parents. I reached out carefully. "I don't blame you," I told her at our first coffee meeting. "You were a victim, just like me. You tried to warn me at enormous personal risk. Over the following months, we developed an unexpected friendship. We'd both been preyed upon by the same monster. That shared trauma created a bond. She was seeing a therapist, working through PTSD, and I recommended Dr. Reeves. Monica became a friend too, sharp, protective, unapologetically angry on her sister's behalf. I also sued David Thornton in civil court and won a judgment for the $180,000 he'd stolen. He had no assets, but the judgment ensured future collections. More importantly, I worked with Patricia and the FBI to establish a victim support network for elderly fraud victims. David's other victims joined the effort. We gave talks at senior centers, wrote guides on recognizing fraud, worked with lawmakers on stronger protections. Turning my pain into purpose gave the whole nightmare meaning. A year after the trial, I stood in my living room, redecorated, reclaimed, mine again, and looked at the new photos on my mantel. The real Michael at his college graduation, Michael on a hiking trip, Michael and Robert laughing at a family barbecue. I'd survived. More than that, I'd won. And every day I woke up in my own home, surrounded by truth instead of lies. Felt like another victory. 2 years after David Thornton's conviction, my life had transformed completely. I sold the house with too many painful memories and bought a smaller craftsman cottage in northwest Portland with a garden where I grew tomatoes and herbs. Vanessa visited often. She'd met someone, a kind software engineer named Thomas, who knew her whole story and loved her anyway. She'd bloomed over the past 2 years, getting promoted to charge nurse and volunteering at a women's shelter. She'd turned her trauma into strength. Monica came by regularly with her girlfriend Sarah. The 4 of us had formed an unlikely family. We had Sunday dinners, went to movies, celebrated holidays together. Monica joked that I'd become the grandmother she'd always wanted. My fraud prevention advocacy work had expanded beyond imagination. I'd written a best-selling book, Stolen Identity: How I Survived Elder Fraud and Fought Back. I gave talks across the country, appeared on news programs, consulted with the FBI on elderly exploitation cases. At 70 years old, I had a purpose that meant something. Meanwhile, David Thornton's life had become the hell he deserved. Prison had not been kind. Con artists who prey on elderly women aren't well liked behind bars. He'd been assaulted twice, spent months in solitary protection. His appeals were denied repeatedly. His accomplices faced consequences too. The forger got 8 years, the hacker got 6, the coach got 4. Civil judgments bankrupted them. David's own family had disowned him. His mother released a public statement condemning his actions and changed her last name. His prison commissary account sat empty. No one sent money, wrote letters, or visited. He was utterly alone. Patricia showed me a recent prison photo. David at 40, looking 60. Gaunt, gray, defeated. "Do you feel sorry for him?" she asked. I considered carefully. No, I feel sorry for the people he hurt. But sorry for him? Never. That was justice. If you're listening to this story, please hear my message. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't let fear of seeming paranoid stop you from asking questions, demanding proof, protecting yourself. I learned that love can be weaponized, that grief makes us vulnerable, but also that we're stronger than we know. The most important lesson? Never stop fighting for truth, no matter how frightening it becomes. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have opened that note? Investigated? Confronted him? I hope you never have to find out. But if you do, fight back. You're worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to my story.